Hey y'all, I have a question for you. If you were making $100,000 a year, would you be comfortable walking away from that salary? Like tomorrow, put in your notice and embark on whatever you want. In a way, that's what Joseph and I did in April 2022. At the time, Joe and I were both 38 years old. I had been working at driving my career and growing it over 15 years, specifically in tech, and I was now making over $500,000 a year. And there I was. I was putting in my notice, telling my boss that I was done, and we were packing all of our things, getting ready to move from Singapore to Portugal. And we were able to do this because Joseph and I had now reached a level of financial independence that allowed me to walk away and become work optional. And to be honest, if you would have asked me if I was going to be comfortable walking away from this cush job, I would have told you a few years prior that there was no way I was going to do that. But something had changed for me. I had not only taken the time to truly learn about what FIRE was, but now I was committed. I was prioritizing and making sure that our hard-earned money was not only working hard for us, but that we had a specific financial independence plan that was going to work for us. And so in today's video, we're going to talk about FIRE, why learning about FIRE came at a perfect time for me, and it could be a perfect time for you too. We're going to talk about what FIRE is, we're going to discuss the principles of FIRE and how we actually applied those principles to our personal finance journey. And if you stay to the end of the discussion, we're going to talk about what we actually withdrew in 2023 so you can see how our investments are funding a portion of our expenses in retirement right now. But first, if you're new here, welcome to the Permission to Be Wealthy channel. My name is Stefanie, and my husband Joseph and I have open and honest conversations about what it's like to build wealth, invest, and to pursue financial independence. We both started off our careers over 17 years ago, making about $30,000 to $40,000 each, and over time, we worked really hard to increase our income. We got intentional with our hard-earned money. We became debt-free millionaires at the age of 38 and as a family of 4. If any of that information or those topics interest you, please like and subscribe to our channel. We'll be posting about 2 to 3 videos weekly. So let's talk about how FIRE came into my life at what seemed like the perfect time. In 2020, after about 5+ years of Joseph being super patient and sending me all these YouTube videos and articles about FIRE, he asked me to read a book with him over Christmas, and it was called Quit Like a Millionaire. It's written by Christy Shen and Bryce Lung. And to say that I was hooked after reading this book is a really big understatement. First of all, Christy is absolutely hilarious, and she loves math and data, which is a great way to my data-loving heart. But this book was one of those right place, right time things for me. Number one, I was at the point of coming to real odds with my career. And like many people in 2020, I was looking at my work, which was in tech, in the supply chain. During the pandemic, we were in Singapore. We were under lockdown. I was working crazy hours and we were doing all sorts of crazy fire drills. Like we were literally saving lives. And then at the same time, I was trying to be a first-time mom, present wife, and I was now grappling with the fact that I was thinking about all the work that I was doing, and if I was going to be working on something that was taking away from my family and the time that I had with my family, I wanted that work to be really aligned to my values and the impact that I wanted to see out in the world. And my eyes were open to how much more simple it was to now invest, and the data doesn't lie. As of 2024, passively managed funds have taken over in overall value versus actively managed funds. So what does that mean? It means people like yourself and myself have now taken note of how easy, low cost, and simpler it is to invest your money in something that you actually understand with the rise of the low cost index fund. And number 3, I'm a woman, and it is no shock to me that the gender pay gap is real. And as more women like myself fight to get paid our worth and do more impact work all across the globe, it's critical that we're investing our hard-earned money so that we can manage all of life's challenges and, in all honesty, the nuances that are going to come along our way. So now imagine me, I'm reading this book and I'm realizing that retirement is no longer an age, and actually it's not even an all or nothing thing. So imagine if you saved and invested up to a point where you could reclaim your time, be location independent, become work optional, be able to take the time to focus on a project or work that was more aligned to your values, and overall become more confident about your money and your financial future. For me, these were actually some of the outcomes that FIRE could give us. And so now we're going to go ahead and get into the definition. FIRE stands for Financial Independence Retire Early. And for those diehard FIRE followers, it's a financial philosophy that emphasizes aggressive saving and investing in order to achieve financial independence and retire much earlier than the traditional retirement age of 65. And that's the main part in the takeaway. No longer are we expected to just retire at the age of 65. We could actually enjoy our lives and live our lives on our terms earlier. So let's actually break down some of the principles of FIRE, and actually we're going to use the acronym of FIRE. I'm also going to sprinkle in how we've interpreted the FIRE movement into our own lives and our financial independence journey. So the first word is financial. So to reach FIRE, people typically refer to the Trinity study, which is essentially saying that if you invest your money up to a point where your investments equal 25 times your annual living expenses, you can withdraw 4% of your overall portfolio and have it live for 30 years plus with 95% certainty or more. And if you withdraw 3% of your overall portfolio, your success rate goes up to 100%. So while these are the more black and white details of how to calculate your FIRE number, this was actually a really powerful part of the overall movement for us because it forced us to understand our income, our spending, and what we had left over specifically to deploy in our investments. It also forced us to identify the lifestyle that we wanted to live. So we had to discuss, did we want to live super frugally? Did we want to live a lavish lifestyle? Did we want to find something in the middle? And the reality is that we chose to find something in the middle because we wanted to enjoy the journey along the way. It also forced us to talk about the future, like what we needed to do about our active income, specifically in semi-retirement, like we are in right now, and what our spending plan was going to look like in the future, specifically when it came to private school for the boys. Were we going to rent? Were we going to own a home? How are we going to plan for our taxes, specifically in our investments, and the whole nine? It also forced us to have a plan, which at this point should really be my middle name, because I remember I was sitting there at work and I was thinking to myself, if I can forecast and create billion-dollar plans for a company, I know that I can create million-dollar and multi-million-dollar plans, not only for myself, but for the people that I serve in my business. And so if you're looking for a great way to start mapping out your independence plan on your terms, you can start checking out the video somewhere right here on the topic. It also comes with a free independence planner that you can download in the description. So the second word in FIRE is independence. And in the FIRE movement, that means that you invest your money to a level in which you don't have to rely on your active income any longer. And you can't miss this step. If you simply calculate your FIRE number and you don't take into account the way that you actually need to invest your money and in the right things, you're left with an actual dream, but you don't have any reality to that. So for us, that meant investing primarily in index funds across all of our accounts. These are low cost to get into, they have low fees, they're diversified, and so you don't have to pick individual stocks. In a way, I've been able to set our investments and we can kind of forget them. And we have two main buckets when it comes to our investments. The first bucket is our retirement accounts, which actually right now are Coast FIRE. I started investing in my 401k at about $50 a paycheck back in 2007. Now that set of accounts is valued at over $350,000. And even if I don't invest any more money into those accounts, by the time I'm 65, those accounts are set to be valued at $2.4 million, assuming an 8% rate of return. And then we have our taxable brokerage accounts, which are planned to have enough money invested in them to bridge us from 45 to 65. Now, the investment part does take a bit of planning over the long term, but a great way to get started is by watching this video here. It's specifically about opening a Roth and investing your first dollars in an ETF to help you get started. And lastly, I'm going to combine retire early into one bucket for the sake of our discussion. This one's really straightforward, but it's really important to get intentional about what you want retirement to look like for you, especially if you're making the decision to go ahead and do it early. And our plan has changed quite a bit over the last 2 years. Originally, the plan was to have me continue working in my tech job until the end of 2024, but we got so clear about our plan, our spending, and what we really wanted our next phase in our financial life to look like, both our active and our passive income, that I actually felt comfortable walking away from the $500,000 annual salary specifically to reclaim my time back. And now that I think about it, we'd be really close to our 100% original FIRE plan by the end of this year if I would have stayed in my tech job. But if you ask my husband how much happier I am now that we have taken the path that we have since leaving my job in April 2022, I wouldn't trade this experience for the world. And I get to help more women and more families pursue this dream for themselves as well, which is incredibly rewarding. So if you're thinking about early retirement, I'd recommend thinking about the following. How do you plan on handling healthcare? How do you plan on handling risk in your portfolio? And how much are you going to have in your emergency fund? Will you go all in on index funds? Will you mix dividends and other cash flow flow options specifically into your plan. Where will you live? How will you live? And honestly, I think the main question is, how do you truly want to enjoy your life in early retirement? So while I've covered some of the science and the art to FIRE, let's get into what we actually withdrew from our portfolio in 2023 to help fund some of our living expenses. So for some context, we are partially retired. And what that means is I've retired my crazy big tech career and I'm now focused on building my business, specifically the Women's Wealth Effect. And Joseph continues to work in real estate and he will be sharing some changes that he wants to share with you at a later date. So in 2023, our portfolio includes a 401k, which is really now an IRA and Roth IRA from my 401k rollover, and 2 taxable brokerage accounts. Now across our portfolio, we are invested in index funds, ETFs, and some covered call ETFs. We also have some individual stocks, which are a small percentage of our overall portfolio. And in the future, we do plan on investing in other funds to start broadening our overall portfolio from the standpoint of outside of the US and in markets internationally. We also plan on investing in real estate and mixing that back up in the future. But in 2023, we withdrew $52,348, which is about 4% of our overall portfolio. That covered about 50% of our expenses for 2023, which actually included 100% furnishing and securing our apartment at the end of the year. We also traveled to the US for our entire families 2 times and a whole lot more. Ideally, we want to be at a 3% withdrawal rate until we're 55, but Joe and I felt like it was really important to give ourselves some breathing room as we continue to settle our lives and our entire family here in Portugal. I hope today's video gave you a simple introduction to what FIRE is. The FIRE movement for me is more of like a guideline and not necessarily a set of hard and fast rules. Of course, there are risks that you have to weigh when investing in the stock market, but what I will say is that prioritizing our future selves as it relates to how we gave intention to our hard-earned money has absolutely changed our lives, and we wouldn't trade it for the world. I'd love to hear about what additional questions you have specifically about what FIRE is and what you might be taking in steps to pursue financial independence on your terms. If you found value in today's video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. And I hope today's discussion gave you a little bit more food for thought on how to give yourself permission to be wealthy.